Good afternoon, everybody. Don't all answer at once.
Good afternoon.
I do not have any comments at the top, so we can go straight to your questions. Josh, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Josh. So some of our intelligence leaders were on the Hill today for quite a while, testifying about Russian hacking, among other things.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
Clapper said, talked a lot about what Russia did, but declined to call it an act of war, saying that wasn't really their place to do that. But it seems it would be the place of the White House to make that kind of determination if it felt that it was appropriate. So, based on the details that were laid out on the Hill, does the White House feel that the Russian hacking and the related to the campaign constituted an act of war?
Josh, what I can tell you is that the Obama administration takes very seriously the effort that was undertaken by the Russians to interfere with and even undermine the basics of American democracy.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
And the intelligence community takes that quite seriously, and that was evident from the extraordinary statement that they issued back in October, a month before the election, indicating that they had concluded with high confidence, unanimously, that Russia had undertaken this effort, and that this was an effort that could only have been directed from the highest levels of the Russian government.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.
This is obviously the president directed the intelligence community to put together this report last month. He asked them to complete this report before January 20th. So they are beating that deadline by a couple of weeks. And the president has also asked the intelligence community to ensure that they are briefing Congress, which is something that Director Clapper indicated earlier today that he would do. He has asked the intelligence community to brief the president-elect, something that apparently has been scheduled for tomorrow. The president has also directed the intelligence community to make as much of the information that's included in the report public, because it's important for the American people to understand that it's our democracy that has been interfered with. And so the people who are participating in that democracy should have as much information as possible about what exactly happened. Now,
despite the recent allegations against Russia, the FBI never accessed the hacked servers of the DNC in their investigation. For more on the hearing, I'm joined tonight by John McAfee, cybersecurity legend and developer of the McAfee antivirus, and also the CEO of MGT. Great to have you with us tonight, John. I appreciate your time. Characterize what you heard today on Capitol Hill. How conclusive is it?
Well, I'm going to be very frank with you and the American public. I think that today, the most deceptive propaganda to date was perpetrated on the American public. The most deceptive propaganda to date was perpetrated on the American public. The most deceptive propaganda to date was perpetrated on the American public. The most deceptive propaganda to date was perpetrated on the American public. The most deceptive propaganda to date was perpetrated on the American public. The data that was presented, the evidence was culled from a thing called the Grizzly Steppe Report, put together jointly by Homeland Security and the FBI. In there are 4 facts which they claim prove that Russia did this hack. It was utter nonsense. The information was, number 1, Russian language was found in the malware. Number 2, a Cyrillic keyboard was used. By the way, the forensic science can now tell what type of keyboard was used to develop a piece of malware. Number three, the compiler, that is one of the piece of software that compiles the code so that it can execute, always dates and timestamps. It said that the timestamps were in a time zone for the business hours of Moscow and St. Petersburg and other places in Russia. And then number four, that the IP address pointed to a Russian address. Now, let me go through this and try to make it very simple for the American people. If the CIA wanted to hack Russia, the things you would not do is you would not include the English language in your software, because that would then exclude everybody except English-speaking nations. You would certainly not use a keyboard that everybody knows that the CIA uses, whatever keyboard they use. You'd have them use a Chinese keyboard or something else. You would certainly remove the date and timestamp from the program so that you couldn't tell what business hours or what zone you were in when it was compiled. And number four, you would absolutely not have an IP address that points to you.
There is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections.